Lincoln Journal-Star. This reading today is brought to us by a grant from the Omaha Association of the Blind. And we welcome now on this Monday our very excellent readers, Mike Garrity and Laura Beth Barr. Good morning.
Good morning, Paul, and thank you. This is Laura Beth Barr reading from the Omaha World Herald. From Austin, Texas, the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to rule today, the last day of its term, on whether a 2013 Texas law placed an undue burden on women exercising their constitutional right to abortion. It will be the court's final major ruling on the divisive topic since 2007. Texas abortion clinics are challenging the state law, which has already cut the number of abortion providers in half to roughly 20. Fewer than 10 would remain if the Republican-backed law was allowed to take full effect. An analysis by the Dallas Morning News shows that women who are poor and non-white would face the biggest challenge in obtaining an abortion in Texas under the law. Currently, 100 Texas counties are more than 100 miles away from the nearest Texas abortion clinic, and 21 counties are more than 250 miles away. The last time the justices decided a major abortion case was 9 years ago, when they upheld a federal law banning a late-term abortion procedure. The Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide in its landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling. One of the contested restrictions in the Texas law requiring abortion doctors to maintain admitting privileges at a nearby hospital took effect in November 2013. A second restriction, which requires all abortions to be performed in hospital-like surgical clinics, would reduce the number of clinics to as few as 9. The National Network of Abortion Funds, which assists low-income women in paying for their abortion, said the struggle to secure funds already causes low-income women to be more likely to delay an abortion or carry an unwanted pregnancy to term. A person with means may be better able to miss a day of work or scheduled childcare than a lower-income person who may have to make difficult choices, like missing a day of work and the earnings from it, or leaving a young child with family for 2 days in order to travel a full day for an abortion, the network wrote in a brief to the Supreme Court in connection with the Texas case. Texas women had about 14% fewer abortions in the state in 2014, the first full year since the clinics closed than the year before. Historical polling data suggested that views on abortion in the U.S. have changed a little in recent decades. In a Reuters Ipsos online poll involving 6,769 U.S. adults, conducted from June 3rd to June 22nd, 47% of respondents said abortion generally should be legal, and 42% said it generally should be illegal.
Good morning. This is Mike Garrity, and I'm reading the Lincoln Journal-Star from the web today. And I've got a front page story that says Clinton double digits ahead. Support for Donald Trump has plunged as he has alienated both Republicans and large majorities of voters overall in the course of a month of self-inflicted controversies, propelling Democrat Hillary Clinton to a double-digit lead nationally in a new Washington Post ABC News poll. The survey finds sweeping unease with the presumptive Republican nominee's candidacy, from his incendiary rhetoric and values to his handling of both terrorism and his own business, foreshadowing that the November election could be a referendum on Trump more than anything else. Roughly 2 in 3 Americans say they think Trump is unqualified to lead the nation, are anxious about the idea of him as president, believe his comments about women, minorities, and Muslims show an unfair bias, and see his attacks on a federal judge because of his Mexican American heritage as racist. A slimmer majority say they disapprove of the way Clinton has handled questions about her use of a personal email server while she was Secretary of State, and half of Americans are anxious about the prospect of a Clinton presidency, underscoring the historic unpopularity of the 2 major party candidates. In fact, so strong is many Americans' opposition to Clinton and desire for a change in Washington that even some registering their disapproval of Trump say that as of now they feel compelled to vote for him.
From Westerly, Rhode Island, Taylor Swift has a home in this seaside community. But even one of the world's most famous women wouldn't be able to join the Westerly Yacht Club, which bestows full membership only on men. A vote to change the policy at the nearby century-old club in the Ocean State, where the love of sailing runs deep, failed to reach a 2/3 majority last week. In a secret ballot, 207 men voted for the change, and 171 men voted to keep it the way it is. Wives can become associate members, and while they can run committees and organize parties at the club, they can't vote. Single women and married lesbians are not admitted, even as associates, because they are not married to a man. Gay men may join, but their husbands may not become associates, a status reserved for wives. Women and many men are not happy. Several women connected to the club said it was ridiculous in a year when Hillary Clinton is making a historic run for president that they can't join. How do I explain this to my daughters? That you can be president, but you can't be a member of the Westerly Yacht Club, said associate member Danielle Hitu. Hitu and her husband, who sits on the club's board, are among those who have been working for years to change the policy. Previous votes to admit women have won a majority, but failed to win a 2/3 majority as required by the club's bylaws. One member who voted against the change said he believes many of the wives agree with him. They're all happy with what they got. They don't have to pay dues, Bob Dion said. Annual dues are about $600, although others point out that wives could continue to be non-voting, non-dues paying associate members if they choose. Jane Barstow, an associate member and retired professor of English and Women's Studies, thinks the policy remains in part because of the old guard at the club that is resistant to change. She theorizes that there may be something of a backlash against Clinton's historic run for president, and says there may be other reasons as well. I heard somebody say that some women have told their husbands to vote against it because they were afraid of their husbands interacting with single women, she said. That's very sad. Others have theorized that members do not want competition for their businessmen from professional women who could join their club for the networking opportunities. Many people in the community were shocked to learn of the policy. Linda Lee stopped by last year to inquire about joining. Lee owns a financial advising firm in nearby Mystic, Connecticut, and thought it would be a nice place to socialize, have lunch with clients, and network. She and her husband live nearby and own a 50-foot boat, which is in her name. But when she asked at the bar about membership, Lee could not believe what she heard. Well, you can't join. You have to be a man. Your husband can join, Lee said, as she was told. I just said, forget it, and I walked out. These days are just so past that. Julie Cardinal has the club in her blood. Her maternal grandfather died on his boat there. Her father was the club's commodore, and she got married at the club. Her husband became a member. But when they divorced, she lost her status as associate member. Now, when she wants to go there, she needs her father or mother to sign her in. No one has yet challenged the policy in court. The club's commodore, Scott Howard, pushed to admit women, but said he also believes the policy is legal because it is a private club. Several associate members and members said they think it violates the law. They think anti-discrimination laws apply because the club has over 600 members, holds a liquor license, and rents out facilities to the general public. Lynette Blamberger, one of the Rhode Island's leading civil rights lawyers, said the policy is problematic. Rhode Island prohibits discrimination based on gender. While a small group for men, such as a reading group, might be okay, it's less likely to be allowed when a club has many members and charges fees. The Westerly Sun editorialized that the policy gave the town a black eye and suggested that if people withheld dues and stopped going to the bar, the club might change. Cardinal said letting women join would not change much. It would just give women more of a voice. I still love it and enjoy it, Cardinal said. I just don't think it's correct.
Okay, here's a story on Brexit. I must admit, I don't quite understand this. See what you make of it. Brexit referendum may be moot is the headline. Sometimes, rarely, amid the I told you so editorials and breathless think pieces that follow a major political event, the best take is actually in the comment section. Such is the case with a comment left by a user of the Guardian's website under the name Teebs, writing in the aftermath of Britain's Thursday vote to exit the European Union. The commentator has left many around the world, especially anxious Remain voters, hopeful with his or her articulate, stir-the-pot observation, a mini article in and of itself. The speculative comment lays out a scenario under which Brexit might be averted. A redux of the argument goes like this. British Prime Minister David Cameron had said that he would invoke Article 50, which establishes a timetable for formally breaking up with the EU, if his country voted to leave the EU, in fact. He said he'd do it the morning after. Instead, in announcing his impending resignation, he may be trying to shield his legacy by passing the responsibility of triggering a potentially catastrophic Brexit to his successor. Given that Cameron's likely successors are Brexit supporters from within his party, one might think that they would they would simply go ahead and invoke Article 50, setting the EU pullout process in motion. But as Teebs noted, these likely successors have been quite subdued in their remarks since the referendum, and some are nowhere to be found. Boris Johnson, London's former mayor and a favorite to succeed Cameron, has said that there is no need to trigger Article 50 right away. Other Brexiteers from within Cameron's Conservative Party has simply avoided the question. In other words, the consequences of a Brexit are so stark and may hold such disastrous implications that Cameron's successor might hold off on invoking Article 50. As Teebs put it, the enormity of that step started to sink in. The markets, Stirling, Scotland, the Irish border, the Gibraltar border, the frontier at Calais, the need to continue compliance with all EU regulations for a free market, reissuing passports, Brits abroad, EU citizens in Britain, the mountain of legislation to be torn up and rewritten. The list grew and grew. It doesn't seem as if anyone is stepping up to that task yet, and it's unclear if anyone will.
And we have a section called Good News from Memphis, Tennessee. A teen's offer to take groceries to a man's car in exchange for some donuts has led to a flood of donations exceeding $200,000. When 16-year-old Chauncey Black of Memphis approached shopper Mark White, the man responded by giving him a cart of full groceries. White then established a GoFundMe page in the hope of raising $250 to buy the teen a lawnmower so Black could earn money mowing lawns. White said the page caught fire and donations started pouring in. As of Saturday night, donations had reached $219,000. Now White wants to make sure that the money is put to good use. A trust is being established to dedicate the money to Black's education and to helping his family move into a house. And from Sacramento, California, as Amy Rogers watched her eldest son, Preston, glide on his skateboard on a recent afternoon, she marveled at how far he had traveled over the past few months. Before he took his first skateboarding lesson as part of a new therapy for children with disabilities, the 15-year-old who had been diagnosed with autism had never ridden a bike before. It's been incredible for him. Gives him something to relate to other kids about and talk about. His education came through Skate MD, a Sacramento-based nonprofit designed to help children with disabilities learn social and physical skills through skateboarding. During occasional clinics held around the region, Skate MD has taught dozens of children, such as Preston, how to build strength while helping them overcome their social anxieties. Teaching children how to nurture relationships was the program's initial goal, said Skate MD founder Melanie Tillotson of Sacramento. At the program's start late last year, she recruited Eric Nielsen, a physical therapist and skateboarder. Before each clinic, Nielsen first goes over with the families any physical or social inhibitions the kids might have. From there, he comes up with a plan that includes showing volunteers how to hold kids up as they ride or have them sit on boards as they roll around. About 25 kids participate in each clinic, with double or triple the number of volunteers. One obstacle for some parents has been skateboarding's renegade reputation, said Skate MD founder Andrea Bibelheimer. It's been so neat for people who normally wouldn't engage with skateboarders to change their views about skateboarding and skateboarders and become friends, she said.
Ohio legislation says save the animals. Until a new law was passed this spring, it was against the law in Ohio, along with many other states, for firefighters or paramedics to provide basic first aid to dogs and cats rescued from house fires, car accidents, or other crisis situations. Only licensed veterinarians could do that. The legislation passed recently makes Ohio one of the first states to protect first responders who administer life-saving aid to pets. companion animals or police dogs in crisis. Animal advocates say they hope the statute, which they liken to laws protecting Good Samaritans who come to the aid of injured humans, removes hesitation for first responders who might have concerns about tending to injured pets. The law will allow first responders to, without fear of liability, provide oxygen, perform mouth-to-mouth, mouth-to-snout resuscitation, try to stem bleeding, bandage, and even administer the overdose antidote, naloxone, to dogs or cats that have ingested opiates. Liability has been a concern because owners of pets have sued first responders who treated animals that ended up dying. It's another layer of protection for the good guys, said Corey Smith, Director of Public Policy for Companion Animals at the Humane Society of the United States. Ohio's law, which follows a similar action by Colorado in 2014, came about after Bob Swickard, the director of an EMS service in a small town in northeastern Ohio, contacted state Republican Rep. Tim Gentner with concerns about a recent rash of on-duty injuries to police dogs. In seeking guidance from a veterinarian on first aid for dogs, Swickard said he found a missed loophole. It was clearly illegal for EMTs to treat animals. He and Genter were especially concerned that paramedics couldn't administer naloxone to police dogs that came in contact with prescription pain pills or heroin. There is a possibility that a dog could get a snout full of something and go down, Clint Gentner said. The best that they could do before this law was to call either a veterinarian to come to the scene or call for transport. Dr. Ed Cooper, head of emergency and critical care at Ohio State University's Veterinary and Medical Center, said that as a result of the law, which takes effect August 31st, some veterinarians are reaching out to first responders to provide basic training, and first responders are beginning to seek it out. The hope in having this law passed is really just to give first responders the opportunity and extend the options without the potential for recourse to assist pets, as well as people in these kinds of crisis situations, Cooper said. So veterinarians certainly see it as a positive thing. What the law doesn't do is require first responders to treat animals, nor does it now make it okay for people to call 911 when their pets get injured or sick. People should still call emergency animal hospitals in these situations. And this story is accompanied with a picture that's a very touching picture of a golden retriever that has been rescued from a house fire and is being administered oxygen, so it is now breathing normally, and the owner of the dog is watching on with great happiness that the dog is recovering.
Local swimmers may one day compete in a pool used in the 2012 U.S. Olympic swim trials. But for now, it's in pieces, packed in a big storage containers outside a facility near Epley Airfield. For 4 years, the 50-meter swim trials warm-up pool has been kept at Cargo Zone, a facility off 16th Street and Stores Expressway. The pool is awaiting a permanent home at the proposed $125 million Nebraska multi-sport complex in La Vista. It's stored partly in outdoor containers and partly inside climate-controlled facility, multi-sport complex representative said. The pool's steel panels are kept outdoors in 4 40-foot containers. More sensitive mechanical equipment, the filters, the pumps, and control system are stored in the climate-controlled facility, representatives said. The plan is to one day load these containers onto flatbed trucks for transport to the La Vista facility. In the most optimistic projections, the pool will be installed at the multi-sport complex near Interstate 80 and Giles Road in late summer 2018. Gosh, no. Page 2. I just have to turn the page over and then it would make it so simple. Just before its projected opening that fall. When we started this project, our goal was to build on the legacy of the swim trials in the hopes of expanding the greater metro area's reputation as an amateur sports hub, said Mike Castling, chair of the Nebraska Multisport Complex Board. He called the complex a game changer for the region. The pool was disassembled and put in storage after it was used during the 2012 trials at the CenturyLink Center. Multi-sport complex organizations want to use it as an outdoor training and competition pool. Last year, the Nebraska Multisport Complex, formerly the Omaha Multisport Complex, selected the La Vista site after plans fell through to develop the project at Omaha in Tranquility Park.
Okay, here is Don Walton's political column in the Lincoln Journal-Star. It's on Brexit today. The headline reads, "Brexit sets history on the move." If you're a history buff, this is your day. Buckle up, we're going for a ride. Britain's vote to leave the European Union is going to impact all of our lives. We just don't know exactly how much yet. Beyond the sudden jolt to the stock market, this is history on the move. It's kind of like the shifting of tectonic plates deep underground that we can't see, but which eventually produces earthquakes. Britain pulls back to its island. Germany emerges once again as the leading Western continental power in Europe. Russia is emboldened. The tectonic plates are in play. Daily Mirror front page. So what the hell happens now? Headline in the London Times. Britain has cast itself adrift. It was, the story suggested, an act of self-harm, an act of careless, spiteful abandon. A few days later, the Sunday Times proclaimed, "Here comes a national nervous breakdown." The atmosphere seems muted, pensive, somber, even among those who are delighted at the prospect of seeing the back of Brussels, a Times columnist wrote. No convoys of hooting cars have driven through Britain's streets. It was another story suggested a very British coup. As analysts already have suggested, you wonder if Brexit could be a harbinger of our November when Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton collide. Some of the same factors are in play: immigration, trade, nationalism, nativism, a touch of isolationism, and bunkerism, both in terms of fortification and Archie, and discomfort, both with globalization and the march of onrushing change. And perhaps most critically, it is the reaction of people who actually are or feel they are left behind without leverage or power or opportunity, while others prosper, move forward, and succeed. Income and wealth and opportunity disparity always still exist. But when it already is extreme and still growing, the reaction also is likely to be extreme. Apparently, there are some second thoughts now in Britain from people who cast a vote to leave the EU in order to send a message to London and Brussels while assuming that the referendum would fail. But the moving finger writes and having writ moves on. Historians are on high alert now as this compelling chapter unfolds. Okay, here's his finishing up section. Big 2017 legislative session brewing with current revenue challenges, new tax cut proposals looming in advance, of the 2018 election, the University of Nebraska caught in between those two forces as it seeks funding for its new 2-year budget and much more. And it will be a big session for Governor Pete Ricketts as he prepares to seek re-election, with potential opponents eyeing and measuring his legislative success. The Senate is expected to confirm the president's nomination of Robert Rossiter to be a U.S. District Court judge in Nebraska on Monday. And just think, it only took a little over a year for the Senate to act on the nomination, while Nebraska's federal court system struggled with an overload that qualifies as a judicial emergency. A recent weekend baseball trip to Minneapolis was a reminder of how beautiful that city is, with a sparkling new downtown that is an architectural wonderland, and a jaw-dropping new Viking stadium that is ready to set sail this autumn. College athlete recruits and players have really redefined the meaning of commitment and team. And finally, Yankees uncharacteristically caught in the middle between buy and sell, between set your sights at least on a wild card or build for the future. Let's do both.
One of Jake Fann's more memorable crashes is the time his plane collided with a duck midair. Such crashes are par for the course when radio-controlled model airplanes, which are often made of foam or lightweight plastic, fly hundreds of feet in the air. But the skies were clear and the flying smooth Saturday afternoon at the 6th annual Cornhuck Fest, a 4-day festival for model airplane pilots to show off feats of airborne daring do. About 70 pilots, ranging from age 7 to 72, demonstrated their command of the skies in a field near River Road and Nebraska Avenue in Council Bluffs, south of the Ameristar Casino. Planes crisscrossed in the sky, completing barrel rolls, nose dives, and other tricks. Fan, a resident of Council Bluffs who owns 8 model planes, said he uses the activity to relax. It's a stress relief, Fan said. I can block everything out of the world when I fly. The event was hosted by the Twin Cities Eagle Squadron, a Council Bluffs-based chapter of the Academy of Model Aeronautics, which promotes and supports model aviation. Events such as Cornhuck Fest aren't about competition, said Tyler Brown, one of the event organizers. We call it a fun fly, Brown said. We're here to learn from each other. The planes are all radio controlled and sized by their wingspans. Some are as small as 14 inches, while others stretch 12.5 feet. Most are gas or electric powered, and to comply with the safety regulations of Twin Cities, they don't exceed 55 pounds. In an activity dominated by men, 12-year-old Eve Bunkers flies solo. She was gearing up to send her 57-inch red and white plane into the air. It's kind of cool being the only girl, Eve said. She got into the activity from watching her dad, Eric, fly his own planes. The two traveled from Worthington, South Dakota for the festival. Pilots came from all over the country, including California, Utah, Arizona, and Wisconsin. Fan can laugh off the crash with the duck because anybody who does this has crashed, he said. They're lying if they tell you otherwise, Fan's dad, Randy, said with a laugh. Randy Fan, the safety director of Twin Cities, emphasized that anyone can pick up model airplane flying as a hobby. It's not about who's better than who, he said. Jake Fan said he would like to see more young people, such as Eve, take up model aviation. The Twin Cities Eagle Squadron is a nonprofit group. It costs pilot $30 to enter the 4-day event, which ran from Thursday to Sunday. The cost of a model plane covers a wide range, as low as $100 and as expensive as several $1,000s.
Okay, here's a story that affects the Lincoln residents. Arena pays off only part of the city loan. Pinnacle Bank Arena will not be immediately repaying all of the $500,000 loan it got from the city in 2014 to help with cash flow issues. The loan, plus interest of 0.43%, was to be repaid by May 31st, but it wasn't. Instead, the arena has paid $4,329.86 in interest for the 2 years and $100,000 in principal on the loan, according to Steve Hubka, the city's finance director. When the arena opened, city leaders thought that in 3 years there might be enough surplus generated that proceeds from the initial loan wouldn't be needed, said Hubka. It didn't work out that way, he said, but at least $100,000 has been paid back, he added. Hubka points out that this is not a loan in the traditional sense because it is a transaction between two city government funds, the city's general fund and the city's Pinnacle Bank Arena operational account. But a local government watchdog group says it looks like a loan. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, it probably is a duck, says Jane Kinsey, spokesperson for Watchdogs of Lincoln Government, in an email to city council members. The local watchdogs group has been critical of arena operations, concerned the city property taxpayers will someday have to chip in to fund arena operations or repay bonds. The arena operations borrowed the $500,000 in 2014 when it became clear that income primarily from food and drink sales was not going to be enough to cover expenses. The daily operation of the arena is a function of the city, which has a contract with management company SMG. The operations function is separate from the West Haymarket Joint Public Agency. The JPA is a separate legal entity set up to pay off the bonds used to build the arena, nearby parking garages, and the adjacent street system. The JPA, funded in part by a special tax on restaurant, food and liquor, rental cars, and hotel rooms, has never had any financial issues. In fact, tax revenue is coming in much higher than expected and is more than is needed to make the current bond payments. Last year, the 3-member JPA board agreed to give arena operations $1.65 million each year to offset operational losses. Part of that money is income from long-term advertising and money that beer and soda distributors pay for the right to have their products sold in the arena, called pouring rights. Other arenas often include advertising and pouring rights revenue in their operational budget. In Lincoln, that revenue goes to the JPA for the bond payment. City leaders and JPA members do not call the infusion of JPA money into the arena operations budget a subsidy, but instead an operational increment.
In the giant puzzle that is parking in downtown Omaha, the Capital District is set to get 2 new pieces. The mayor's office and the Public Works Department are recommending that the city lease 2 areas under Interstate 480 to the Capital District, a hotel, office, retail, and entertainment area. The 2 sites would provide more than 120 parking stalls for the project, which is under construction at 10th Street and Capitol Avenue. The lots are under the interstate on either side of 10th Street, south of the Hilton and the CenturyLink Center. The City Council is set to vote on a series of agreements between the state and Capital District Parking, LLC, that would make the handover possible. A public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday. There is currently a lot on the west side. The Capital District would construct a lot on the east side. Each lot would have 60 to 70 stalls, said the city's parking manager, Ken Smith. The Nebraska Department of Roads owns one of the lots and a portion of the other. The city owns the rest of the property. The agreements would allow the city to lease the state's portion of the lots. Then it would sublease those areas to the Capital District, as well as lease the portions that are owned by the city to the district. As with other lots under the interstate, the city wouldn't make a profit on them, but rather would charge the Capital District the same amount it pays the state, said Assistant Attorney Jennifer Taylor. In all, the Capital District would pay the city about $5,300 per year for its portion and about $18,000 for the state portion. The district is set to open in 2017 with a 333-room Marriott office and retail buildings, a plaza, and a parking garage.
Okay, it's that time of year, fireworks time. And the headline reads, Fireworks Vendors Stress Safety. It's firework vendors' time to shine or blow up with business. Fireworks went on sale in the county at 12:01 a.m. on Saturday. For Crazy Cracker in Roca and Mr. Boom in Sprague, the madness of explosion-craving customers lasts for 10 days up until July 4th. Some people treat the 4th of July like Christmas, said Crazy Cracker owner Scott Chenoweth. And Chenoweth doesn't question their judgment. It's just fun, he said. Some people just like to blow stuff up. It's hard to explain. It's family a lot of times too. An opportunity for family to do things together. Igniting a light on a fuse is more than just a holiday tradition, but a family tradition. Customers aren't shy about voicing what they're looking for, and everyone's preferences are different according to vendor owners. Mr. Boom owner Sean O'Keefe said it's all about the loud noises, the boom for his customers. People like loud, really loud, O'Keefe said. It's the stuff that feeds the senses, and with a name like Mr. Boom, you know that's what you're going to get. Owners Chenoweth and Gordon Tebow said it's almost always a toss between what can go the highest and fountains with pretty colors. When people ask for height, Chenoweth and Tebow know exactly what to recommend. The 500-gram explosives with the bigger cake or tube device made up of Roman candles, small aerial shells, or a combination of both. Crazy Exciting on steroids, One Bad Mother, and Loyal to None are some of the maximum height fireworks and bestsellers, costing up to $50. The names alone are enough for some to throw down the cash. Fireworks lovers take getting the bang for the buck in a literal sense. Some are willing to spend up to $6,000 in one trip for a private party, according to O'Keefe. If customers are willing to hand over the money, owners said they guarantee high-quality fireworks along with a good time. But the vendors have an even bigger priority, which is safety. From June 25th through July 5th of 2015, hospitals reported 176 firework-related injuries, according to the Nebraska State Fire Marshal website. There's no question that fireworks can be dangerous, so owners send customers out with a few reminders.
And it's time for the obituaries. In the Omaha World Herald, Buchanan, Roy L. Buchanan, 77, a veteran. Memorials will be directed by the family. Hefe Hoffman Cutler, Vinton Street Chapel in charge. Curtis, Dorsey Butch L. Curtis, 75, of Ashland, Nebraska, a veteran. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center, or Nebraska No-Kill Canine Rescue, or Victory Junction Gang Camp. The Marcy Mortuary in Ashland, Nebraska, in charge. Heimrod, Tammy S. Heimrod, 56, the Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler, in charge. Heiminger, or Heminger, Marianne E. Heminger, 82. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the Nebraska Humane Society. The Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler Bel Air Chapel, in charge. Henderson, Annie P. Henderson, 75, the Good Shepherd Funeral Home, in charge. Johnson, Perry Marvel Johnson, 93, a combat engineer veteran. Memorials to the General Fund of Dietz Memorial UMC. The Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler, in charge. Jorgensen, Stephen A. Jorgensen, 60. Memorials given to the family will be used in Steve's memory at a later date. The Bremen Mortuary Southwest Chapel, in charge. Kusek, Angeline F. Kusek, 96. In lieu of flowers, please direct memorials for masses or to the Sierra Club Mass for Shut-ins. The Bethany Funeral Home, in charge. Langdon, Pat Langdon, 67, a veteran. The Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler, in charge. Manganaro, Veda Manganaro, 103, of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, formerly of Omaha, Nebraska. Memorials to St. Francis Cabrini Catholic Church. The Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler, in charge. Masker, Beverly A. Masker, 82, of Plattsmouth, Nebraska. Memorials may be directed to Parkinson's Association. The Brian P. Harvey Funeral Home in Plattsmouth, Nebraska, in charge. McKinsey, Maureen C. McKinsey, 75. A complete notice will come later from the 72nd Street Chapel of John A. Gentleman Mortuary and Crematory. Osborne, John R. Osborne, 47. A complete notice will come later from the Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler. Roach, Gary P. Roach, 60. A complete notice will come later from the Pacific Street Chapel of John A. Gentleman Mortuary and Crematory. Seaman, Aspen Drake Seaman, 4. In lieu of flowers, the family would be honored to have memorials sent to Waterloo Fire and Rescue and Children's Hospital and Medical Center. The Reichmuth Funeral Home, in charge. Selden, Howard Roy Selden Jr., 88, of Tyre, Texas, a Navy veteran. In lieu of flowers, donations in Howard's memory can be sent to the United Methodist Service Center and food pantries in Abilene, Texas, or the Thai Senior Citizens in Thai, that's Tye, Texas. There is no mortuary listed. Seumi, Rita L. Seumi, 90. A complete notice will come later from the Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler. Spoustat, John T. Spoustat, 61. For memorials, the family suggested masses or donations to missionaries of the poor in Cap Haitian, Haiti. The Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler in charge. And the last notice in the World Herald is Wistrom, Raymond C. Wistrom, 81. Memorials to West Hills Church or Parkinson's Foundation. The Bel Air Chapel of Heaphy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler in charge.
And here are the obituary announcements in the Lincoln Journal-Star. Amber, Judith C. Amber, 80 of Lincoln. Memorial service will be held at 11 a.m. Tuesday, June 28th at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church in Lincoln. Memorials can be made to the family for a future designation. Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home in charge of arrangements. Bauer, Lawrence R. Bauer, 86 of Geneva, military veteran. Memorial service is 10 a.m. Monday at Grace Lutheran Church in Geneva. Military graveside services. Memorials to the family for later designation. Farmer and Son Funeral Home handling arrangements. Campbell, James Ray Campbell, age 58. Service will be at 2 p.m. on Saturday, June 25th at Southview Baptist Church in Lincoln. Carrier, James L. Carrier, 67, Air Force veteran. Memorial service will be held at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, July the 6th at First Presbyterian Church, 17th and F Streets. Memorials may be made to First Presbyterian Church Foundation, Cornhusker Boy Scout Council, or Junior Achievement. Roper and Sons handling the arrangements. Cloet, Andrew Henry Cloet, 88 of Sutton. Sutton Memorial handling arrangements. Curtis, Dorsey Butch L. Curtis, 75 of Ashland, military veteran. Memorial Mass at 10 a.m. Wednesday, St. Patrick Catholic Church in Gretna. And let's see, memorials to the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center or Nebraska No-Kill Canine Rescue or Victory Junction Gang Camp, and Marcy Svoboda handling the arrangements. DeMoss, James N. DeMoss, 85 of Lincoln. Services at 2 p.m. on Saturday, July 9th. Boothera's Mason-in-Law Funeral Home handling arrangements. Epley, Robert Lee Epley Jr., 71 of Tecumseh. Services Monday, Methodist Church in Tecumseh at 2 p.m. and Weary Mortuary handling arrangements. Fauble, Dwayne W. Fauble, 95 of Lincoln, World War II Army veteran. Funeral service at 11 a.m. Monday, June 27th at Roper and Sons. Memorials can be made to Faith Lutheran Church Building Fund in Lincoln. Garvey, Myrle Ann Polson Garvey, 86 of Lincoln. Funeral service at 10:30 a.m. Tuesday at Christ Lutheran Church in Lincoln. And memorials in care of the family for a future designation. Marcy Svoboda handling the arrangements. Giles, Arnetta Giles Eichelberger. A private family celebration will be held on Monday. Memorials to the Lincoln Food Bank, the Center for People in Need, or the Salvation Army, and Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home handling arrangements. Grief, that's Grefe, Netta M. Grief of Lincoln. Groenwald, Emmy Stevens Gronwald, 77 years of age. Celebration of life at 10:30 on Wednesday, June 29th at the Zion Lutheran Church of rural Pickerel. A memorial has been established in her memory, and the Fox Funeral Home handling arrangements. Johnson, Richard D. Johnson, 76 of Tecumseh, services at 10:30 on Wednesday, Weary Mortuary in charge. Johnson, Leland Kim Johnson, 72 of Lincoln, U.S. Army veteran, services at 11 a.m. Tuesday, Westminster Presbyterian Church. Memorials to the Alzheimer's Association or Country House Memory Care arrangements by Boothera's Mason and Love Funeral Home. Kittrell, John V. Kittrell Jr., 63 of Elmwood. Graveside services will be held at 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, June 29th at Wyuka Cemetery. Memorials may be given to the family. Luganville, Ruth M. Luganville of Beatrice, 82 years of age. Meyer, Lola E. Meyer, 80 of Lincoln. Funeral services will be at 10:30 a.m. on Monday, June the 27th at Sheridan Lutheran Church. Memorials are suggested to the American Cancer Society, Boothera's Mason and Love Funeral Home in charge of arrangements. Miller, Angela P. Miller, 94 of Lincoln. Mass of Christian burial, 10:30 a.m. Wednesday, June 29th at Cathedral of the Risen Christ. Memorials to the Alzheimer's Association, Boothera's Mason and Love Funeral Home handling arrangements. Northrop, Robert Dean Northrop, 87 of Lincoln. Service arrangements pending at Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. Norval, Byron J. Norval, 87 of Seward. Memorials in care of the Norval family. Excuse me. Private family interment at later date in Greenwood Cemetery, Seward, and Volsky Funeral Home handling arrangements. Ormiston, Kimberly Karstensen, Ormiston, 66 of Aurora, Colorado. A memorial service will be held at 10 a.m. on Sunday, June 26th at the Horan and McConaughey Family Chapel. Memorial donations may be made to the Chelsea Place Employee Appreciation Fund in Aurora, Colorado, or the Alzheimer's Association. Roberts, Richard D. Roberts, Harrison, Arkansas, formerly of Lincoln, 87 years of age. Graveside services 3 p.m. Thursday, June 30th at Lincoln Memorial Park. Ryan, Michael Dean Ryan, 59. Memorials should be directed to the family, who will distribute them to Michael's favorite causes. Service will be at 11 a.m. Monday, June 27th at Westminster Presbyterian Church. Roper and Sons handling arrangements. Salinas, Juan C. Salinas, 86 of Lincoln. Funeral service at 2:30 p.m. Monday, June 27th at Roper and Sons Chapel. Memorials to the family for future designation. Roper and Sons handling arrangements. Tweet, T-U-I-T-E, Ronald John Tweet, Senior, 72, formerly of Lakeland, Florida. No visitation. Colonial Chapel Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Vietz, Cleon D. Vietz, 54, services at 10 a.m. on Monday at Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. Walters, Grace D. Walters, 87 of Lincoln, funeral mass at 10:30 a.m. Wednesday at St. John the Apostle. And the final obituary announcement in today's Lincoln Journal-Star is Ward, Deborah R. Ward, 53 years of age.
Listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and will go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as Donor's Choice or Your Favorite Charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter. We'll take a short break now and be back in a couple of minutes with editorials, living and entertainment, business and markets, and sports.
Thank you very much, Frank. It is pre-recorded.
You're good.
I'm lucky. It looks like we're being filmed today, doesn't it?
Oh, well, no, that isn't
This is-
where she wants it.
Oh, okay.
Monday, June 27th. Grilled pork patties.
Thank you for playing fair. Okay, you can click like.
German coleslaw.
My license or okay.
Mixed fruits, crisp, and a pint of 1% milk.
Thank you, and Pelican, for reading the home delivery menu for us today. You can hear the home delivery menu each and every weekday at about this time on the Radio Talking Book Network in Nebraska. Now, let's listen to Pulse of the Planet.
I'm not going to read living and entertainment.
That's right, it is editorials today.
I've gotten over that.
The world of science and moving science. We're in the highlands of northeastern Australia as part of the study and the effects of climate change in the region. A team of researchers is surveying the reptiles found at different elevations here. They'll note a number of important details, including where the animal was found and the temperature of the ground it was lying on. Field biologist Steve Williams talked to a group of birdwatch volunteers.
The idea is to observe and catch as many reptiles as we can find. Spend about 10 or 15 minutes walking up and down the road slowly. And if the sun comes out, that's when you'll actually start finding things out in the open, because they're really down on the leaf litter and stuff. But sometimes they're up on the bank and you'll see them move as you walk along. The most important thing is to actually remember where you first saw them. So the first observation is what it's sitting on, whether it was the leaves, the ground, a rock, side of a tree. Just have a look at the data sheet of a column called micro, and that just stands for microhabitat. So most often it's leaf litter, that's just an L. Right down here, that's that grassy bank or a bit of farm. And check that out. That's the car there, there's a girl. Sitting on the leaf sunbathing there. Okay, the car river. Micro is leaf. In the sun column itself, put amber H, medium sunset, and we take the temperature of what it was sitting on, 23 degrees. You can see some of the lizards the team found on our website, pulseplanet.com. Check out my adventures. Also, the Planet Science Diary, made possible by the National Science Foundation. I'm Jim Metzger.
Thank you, Jim Metzger. We didn't want to tell you about two Radio Talking Book Network programs proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for over 41 years. The Radio Talking Book Network is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS-FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio and Television. Now let's return to our readers for the second hour of reading from today's Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal-Star. Here once again are our stars, Laura Beth Bauer and Mike Garrity. Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you, Paul. And the editorial. This is Laura Beth Barr reading the editorial in the Omaha World Herald. Last week, our country saw an example of how our courts are unfairly burdened when lawmakers have failed to do their job. It's not the duty of our courts to set immigration policy. That's Congress's job. But given our country's polarized political climate and the irresponsible refusal of the two parties to agree on necessary compromise, the courts wind up dealing with divisive immigration issues and then taking the blame from critics. The matter at hand was President Barack Obama's plan that would have given deportation relief and work permits to 4 million people who came into the country illegally. 26 states, including Nebraska, sued against the president's action, saying he exceeded his authority. On Thursday, the U.S. Supreme Court tied 4-4 on the matter, leaving intact the district court's injunction prohibiting the administration from carrying out the plan. Legal analyst Lee Denniston concluded if the policy is not yet entirely doomed, it could be after it's formally returned to the federal judge in Brownsville, Texas, who is sure to be guided by an appeals court ruling that already has said, in essence, that the government probably will lose. The appeals court found the administration's action stepped beyond the bounds of presidential authority under the relevant federal statutes. This situation provides lessons for each of the three branches of the federal government. The court's duty in this matter wasn't to decide the policy question of whether the president's action was fair. Rather, the court was tasked with deciding the legal question of where the boundaries of presidential power properly lie, according to statutes and the Constitution. Congress has a responsibility to decide difficult issues such as immigration policy, using deliberation, debate, and compromise. Its failure to perform that fundamental task wrongly puts the onus on the courts to address matters that properly lie in the realm of lawmaking and politics. While it's understandable that the president would feel compelled to address this immigration matter, he still is bound by the law not to exceed his authority. Former President Richard Nixon made the wildly irresponsible claim in a 1977 interview that when the president does it, that means it's not illegal. But under our system of government, the ends do not justify the means. The courts are right to underscore that as needed when it comes to presidential prerogatives.
Okay, and here is the editorial in the Lincoln Journal-Star. It's headlined, "Drug Prices Soaring in Sick System." A panel created to give Congress advice on Medicare warned earlier this month that the rising cost of prescription drugs is unsustainable and offered suggestions on how to slow the trend. One popular recommendation called for Congress to sharply reduce or eliminate the co-payments that low-income Medicare recipients pay for generic drugs. Other parts of the complex package received mixed reviews. In any event, most everyone involved knew that the semi-annual report from the Medicare Payment Advisory Commission was little more than an exercise in frustration. Congress was not going to do anything in an election year. Sadly, there is no guarantee that anything will change after the election. In today's polarized political climate, the major political parties in recent years have pivoted to the next election as soon as the current election results were final. If Congress ever did focus on the problem, its members would have no trouble putting together an agenda. The prescription drug system is shockingly susceptible to market manipulation and profit gouging, exemplified last year by Martin Shkreli's plan to raise the price of an anti-parasitic drug by 5,000%. As Bloomberg News reported, Shkreli, who has since been indicted, was only the most shameless among the profit takers. A survey of about 3,000 brand name prescription drugs found that prices more than doubled for 60 and at least quadrupled for 20 since December of 2014, Bloomberg reported. Among the biggest price increases was Alcortin A, used to treat eczema and skin infections, which posted a price hike of 1,860% during the period. One odd facet of the system is that after taking huge profits, the drug companies turn around and take a tax deduction by donating to charities that help patients come up with the cash to make the copays, with insurance companies and taxpayers footing the rest of the cost. When they make donations, the drug companies prop up the billion-dollar system. Shkreli's company, Turing Pharmaceuticals, for example, kicked in $1 million to a charity that helps patients make co-payments. Drug companies also take steps to eliminate their competition. According to Rutgers law professor Michael Carrier, who specializes in antitrust and patent law, brand name drug manufacturers make it difficult or impossible for a generic manufacturer to obtain samples of their drugs, which they need to demonstrate that their generic is a bioequivalent, absorbed into the body at the same rate. A sample is crucial. Without it, there is no generic, Carrier wrote. The average cost for a year's supply of a prescription drug more than doubled since 2006 to more than $1,000 in 2013, according to AARP. So there's plenty that Congress could do. The current system is so prone to monopoly power abuse that it's enough to make you sick.
And a small editorial in the World Herald. Poor nations around the globe are often told, do a better job opening up economic opportunities for women. That same device applies to America's tech sector and educational institutions. Our country churns out software engineers and other technologists in great numbers. Yet the U.S. Department of Labor projects that by 2020, we will be producing fewer than 1/3 of the new computer specialists needed by the private industry. Part of the answer is outreach to girls and women. The National Science Foundation reports that women account for only 18% of the annual crop of bachelor's degrees in computer science. Yet a national test of technology and engineering shows that 45% of 8th grade girls scored at proficiency level, compared with 42% for boys. That indicates there's considerable potential to increase female engagement with science, technology, engineering, and math. Business, nonprofits, and the educational community in the Midlands have been working on this. Marion High students work with Creighton University professors to do original research, particularly in STEM fields. Girls Who Code, a national nonprofit, recently started a club in Omaha. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln hosts an annual Women in Science Conference. The University of Nebraska at Omaha and other Midlands universities are doing STEM-focused outreach to middle and high school girls. Technology continues to expand its influence. We need to have every bright mind available to help meet the economic need.
Okay, I've got two letters in the Lincoln Journal-Star today. The first one is More Repairs Needed, headline. Now that the city of Lincoln is patching up Superior between North 7th and North 14th Streets, Highway 2 between Van Dorn Street and Old Cheney Road, and has begun resurfacing Vine Street between 27th and 48th. Maybe they could figure out how to fix up the two little lanes of pavement between Purple Heart Highway and West Fletcher. My requests to have that street fixed were made 10 years ago when my kids were attending North Star High School. It had been referred to the State Department of Roads, who were to sign off on a turning lane into Highway 34. And I'm told this was approved. The backup of cars trying to turn south onto Highway 34 and those trying to get to school clogs the eastbound lane backing up to West Fletcher. I'm embarrassed that the city can't figure this one out. And that was written by Kathleen Kitchen from Lincoln. And I've got one more. Impressed by people and trails. This is a positive one. I am a resident of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. 2 weekends ago, I brought my daughter down to Lincoln for a new student orientation event at UNL. She was staying in the dorms and busy all weekend, so I brought my bike with me to go for a ride. I was not sure if Lincoln had bike trails or not, but I thought I would go exploring regardless. I started out on Saturday morning from my hotel in the Haymarket and soon found the beginnings of a bike trail. I rode about 35 miles that morning on some absolutely outstanding trails. My hometown, Twin Cities, are consistently ranked as either the first or second best biking cities in the United States, so my baseline is quite high. Lincoln should be very proud of the bike trails that you have. However, Lincoln should be even more proud of something else. As I started my trip that morning, I soon started meeting other people, either on bikes or on foot. The first 5 or 6 all said hi to me. I thought that was strange, as virtually nobody says hello on a Twin Cities trail. As I continued on the trail, I was blown away as person after person greeted me. I am guessing between 70 and 80% of the people I passed said hi. In comparison, I did a 40-mile ride back here in the Twin Cities last weekend, and I kept track of how many people said hi. It was easy to do, as the final count was 0. Lincoln is a great city with great people living in it, and I'm even more excited to bring my daughter down here to start her college experience. That was written by Jim Gilliam from Minnetonka, Minnesota.
I have a letter on the editorial page from Mike O'Donnell of Omaha. It is clear that the Nebraska Department of Correctional Services needs help. What is also clear to me is that asking former Nebraska Corrections Director Harold Clark, now working for the Virginia Department of Corrections, seems a little foolish. I was a shift supervisor in one of the Nebraska prisons from 1998 to 2007 and was also an instructor at the Staff Training Academy. Clark was the director from 1990 to 2005, and I never met him. He was so far removed from the inner workings of the facilities, it was alarming. He would enact changes and policy reviews from outside the walls and did not and could not see the negative results. My advice to Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts is to listen to the officers, corporals, shift sergeants, and lieutenants. Sit down with them. They are your most valuable resources and have the frontline, day-to-day knowledge you need to make positive changes. I enjoyed working for the Department of Corrections, but the staff is extremely undervalued and overworked. In addition to listening to the staff, listen to the inmates. I found that 98% of them were good people who caused no problems and had valuable insights as well. Listening to Harold Clark and his staff is nothing short of bringing in old staff with old policy that got us into this place. And a short letter from Michael J. Kelly of Omaha. He is the Senator Alan A. Sett Endowed Chair at Creighton University of Law. The British exit from the European Union is a travesty. The integrity of the EU's entire premise has been compromised, likely to Russian President Vladimir Putin's delight. It is, moreover, a historical irony that Winston Churchill was the one who called for a United States of Europe after World War II, spurring on the eventual creation of the EU. Now, the EU's leaders in Brussels know how the Pope felt in 1530s when England left the Catholic Church, although King Henry VIII didn't hold a referendum.
Okay, shall we move on now
Oh,
to
sure.
today's living and entertainment? And I have Dr. Anthony Komaroff's column. Dear Dr. K, my knees hurt a lot, more on the left. At 76 years young, I guess I should expect that. An MRI scan shows I have a torn meniscus in my right knee and arthritis in both knees. Is there anything to be done? And he says, before I can answer your interesting question, I need to provide some basic information. The meniscus is a crescent-shaped disc of fibrous tissue and cartilage. Each knee has two menisci located between the thigh bone, the femur, and the lower leg bone, the tibia. The menisci act as shock absorbers. They protect the other cartilage tissue that covers the end portions of the femur and the tibia. The kind of injury most likely to tear a meniscus is a twisting injury of the knee. Often this occurs during sports. In older people, however, the meniscus becomes more prone to injury. It can tear for no apparent reason. When a meniscus tears, you sometimes know it. There's a pop or a twinge of discomfort in the knee. But sometimes there are no symptoms when one gets torn. After a meniscus tears, you can have different symptoms. Some of my patients with a torn meniscus suddenly have trouble kneeling or squatting. It hurts when they do it, and it really hurts when they try to stand back up. Other patients report that the knee sometimes locks or catches just during walking. Sometimes they say the knee will just give out on them. When that happens, they almost always have experienced pain just before the knee gave out. Sometimes it's even more subtle. A person has the impression that something is wrong in the knee, that it's not operating properly. If a meniscus gets badly torn, it provides less protection to the ends of the bones. This can lead to osteoarthritis, as was diagnosed on your magnetic resonance imaging scan, MRI. Osteoarthritis is the most common form of arthritis. Should you have treatment on your good knee? Surprising meniscal tears are nearly as common in people who have no knee pain as in those with pain. MRIs are so sensitive that they often detect abnormalities that are not causing any problems to the patient. Doctors should always treat patients, not x-rays or MRIs. Since your right knee feels fine, there is no need to treat the meniscal tear. If you had pain or if you developed pain, the decision would be more difficult. It would be hard to know if your pain was caused by the arthritis, the tear, or both. If your symptoms were mild, it would probably be best to treat the arthritis first. If your symptoms got worse, you could consider meniscus surgery, which can help relieve the pain. That's the long answer to your question. Here's the short version. If it ain't hurting much, don't fix it.
It's something that would happen only in the world of Pixar. A tiny orange clownfish named Nemo goes missing. His father sets out to find him, and a movie about their adventure rakes in nearly $1 billion worldwide. Everyone knows the story of Finding Nemo, the 2003 animated smash that led to the highly anticipated sequel, Finding Dory, which, after 2 weekends in theaters, is still raking in viewers. From the moment Dory was announced, there was massive excitement. So much so that it was hard not to remember the enormous impact of the first film, beloved not only by children, but also teenagers and adults. What was it about Finding Nemo that connected so deeply with people of all ages? I think I'll never really know, admitted Andrew Stanton, who directed Nemo and Dory and helped write Pixar's Toy Story, Toy Story 2, and Wall-E. But he offers one theory about younger viewers. It's a lot like my generation, where Wizard of Oz was played every year on TV. You just know that movie, whether you like it or not. So there's basically a generation of people now that they feel like Nemo is their movie. Nemo is also a sharply written epic that has captivating marine scenery, complete with adorable sea creatures and lots of humor. David Price, the author of The Pixar Touch, The Making of a Company, said that in addition to delightful characters and the magical casting of Elaine DeGeneres as Dory and Albert Brooks as Nemo's dad, Marlin, young viewers may relate to the non-humans trying to navigate through the human world. Kids watching the movie may empathize with Nemo and his pals as they're stuck in the dentist office fish tank. I think this struggle of animals trying to make sense of the human world has some parallels that children have growing up and trying to make sense of the world around them, Price said. But while kids could enjoy it for all those reasons, what about their parents? One hypothesis is that the movie struck a nerve with moms and dads and caregivers, especially because the movie, unlike most films targeted at kids, focuses on parenting. It hits hard on tearjerker themes about growing up and when it's okay to let your kid go. In the movie, Nemo is Marlin's remaining fish egg when an evil barracuda kills Nemo's mother and other siblings. So Marlin is wildly overprotected and is terrified to let him out of his sight. That leads to disaster when Nemo, frustrated about endless rules, defiantly swims away and is captured by a scuba diver. Eventually, after his trip across the ocean to rescue Nemo, Marlin realizes he needs to learn to trust his son. Need tissues yet? I certainly relate, Stanton said of the parenting themes. I was a parent at the time of a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old that got older as I kept working on it, he said. And I was in this rare place where my dad was still alive and kind of sprightly, and I was very aware of what it was like to be both the son and the father at the same time. I felt like I was sort of in the middle of the telescope, and I just kind of jumped on that rare moment where I could see it from both angles really strongly.
Here is the Ask Amy column today, and she answers the question, is washing a child's mouth with soap abusive? Dear Amy, at a play group recently with my toddler's son, another mother with whom I am acquainted but not close to, mentioned in the course of conversation that she washed her 5-year-old's mouth out with soap to curb his lying. She obviously thought it was no big deal. I was so shocked I didn't know how to respond. While I agree it's necessary to teach young children how to be truthful, I neither believe a 5-year-old is old enough to grasp fully the consequences of dishonesty, nor do I think the lies could be of such an extreme nature to warrant a severe punishment. I believe that washing a child's mouth out with soap is tantamount to child abuse. What can I do in the future to share my perspective with a parent who divulges such behavior? I realize it's not my child and the parent's actions do not affect me or my child directly, but it's challenging to not take action when a child is treated in such a way. Signed, Wondering Parent. She says, Dear parent, first of all, washing a mouth out with soap to curb a 5-year-old's lying. This particular punishment has traditionally been used to try to curb a young child's potty mouth. The effort to wash bad words from a child's mouth at least makes sense symbolically, using childish logic that children can perhaps understand on some level. Forcing anything, certainly anything toxic such as soap, into the mouth of a child is abuse. Would the mother think it was no big deal if someone else, say a teacher, did this to her child? Children do survive this awful brand of parenting, and sometimes they go on to laugh about it with their parents later. Sometimes not, especially if the terrible judgment leads to other abusive punishments. My own mother, who was a caring and compassionate parent, admitted to using this soap technique one time, but she said more than once during my childhood that she felt terrible and foolish doing it, and that it had been a mistake and that she would never do it again. Having a parent admit to such a mistake when I was a child was a powerful lesson. Parents make dumb mistakes just as children do. All children lie. Parents should make sure the child knows not only that lying is wrong, but that the truth will set them free. Young children frequently lie about mistakes they made. A parent needs to convey, it is okay for you to tell me about bad things you've done. I trust you to tell me the truth, and you can trust me to help you deal with your own mistakes. When a parent admits to you that she has done something abusive, you should respond, wow, I find that shocking. That is abusive. I hope you don't ever do that again. If the parent doesn't take this feedback well, then so be it. At least you told the truth, and she can't shove soap into your mouth to punish you for it. Second letter, Dear Amy, I'm a grown woman with children. I come from a family I would consider to be close. We have shared lots of occasions together with our children. I have one sibling who is hard to be around. He is so condescending and rude. He likes to talk about himself and shows little interest in me, my kids, or what I do every day. How can I disengage? How can I disengage and not let this bother me? Signed, Upset Sibling. She says, disengaging from someone who doesn't demonstrate that he cares about you should not bother you. It should feel good. If it doesn't feel like a relief, then don't do it. With adult siblings, a level of acceptance should accompany this disengagement. You tell yourself, my sibling is like this, I can't change him, but I don't need to welcome it into my own life. Accept this unfortunate reality and then withdraw. Finally, Dear Amy, frustrated driver was furious that a teenage neighbor girl who rode in his car to school would not say hello to him. Your response was spot on. As the parent of a now 17-year-old high school girl, I can tell you my daughter is painfully awkward. She won't answer the house phone either for fear of having to converse with someone. It's not that she's shy, but she has yet to feel confident and comfortable in her own skin. So lighten up, Dad. It's not about you. Signed, Understanding Parent. And she says, Dear parent, exactly.
So you just blew up a bunch of firecrackers in the driveway. America, right on. Now, what to do with that trash? Leaving it in the street is illegal, and sweeping it down the storm drain can pollute aquatic ecosystems. Throwing those hot embers right into the dumpster could send your home up in flames. So before you cause mayhem in this Independence Day, follow these tips for getting rid of your July 4th rubbish the safe and environmentally friendly way. Wait 20 minutes before cleaning up to allow embers to extinguish. Never try to relight or rewick defective fireworks. Dispose of them. Use a flashlight or overhead light to make sure you can see the area clearly to spot all waste and lingering embers. Submerge any damaged, misfired, unused, and spent fireworks in a bucket or tub of water for at least 15 minutes. If you can't submerge them in the case of larger fireworks, thoroughly spray them down with a hose and leave them overnight in your driveway. Seal the saturated fireworks in plastic wrap or a plastic bag and put them in a trash can, ideally a metal one, or wait overnight before disposing if you prefer not to use plastic. The water used to soak the fireworks should be dumped down the toilet. Don't pour it into the yard or down storm drains. Sweep up firework dust and small debris. Don't hose down your driveway to rid it of rubbish. These hazardous materials can go from storm drains into waterways and harm wildlife. Sweep material into plastic bag and then put that in a trash can. Trash cans holding fireworks waste should be kept outside and away from anything flammable until the morning after the fireworks were set off. Take any leftover or damaged fireworks to Omaha Fire Station, number 43, and it's at 5505 North 103rd Street, or Seymour Park, which is at 68th and Harrison, for disposal on Fireworks Amnesty Day, which is July 9th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I didn't know you could do that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Okay, here is Marie McIntyre's, she's a workplace coach, her column on the workplace. The question we have today is, the owner of our small business appears to be having an affair. Barry's office is about 10 feet from my desk, and the door is always open, so I hear everything he says. For the past month, Barry has been having highly suggestive phone conversations with a woman whom he apparently sees in the evenings or on weekends. To make matters worse, Barry's wife works here, although she's located on the other side of the building. If she happens to walk by during one of these calls, he immediately hangs up. Barry knows I can hear him, so he obviously expects me to keep this information secret. This seems very unfair because I regularly work with his wife. I should also mention that Barry is extremely condescending and often makes sexist remarks, even though all 10 of our employees are female. Although I'm sick of Barry's behavior, I don't want to quit because I love my job and my coworkers. I'm feeling very powerless and unsure about what to do. And so Marie McIntyre says, anyone who broadcasts an adulterous relationship with his wife nearby is either a complete idiot or hoping to get caught. But regardless of Barry's motivations, becoming involved in this marital issue would be a recipe for disaster. So your best bet is to continue ignoring these indiscretions. As for Barry's other offenses, you could attempt to have a calm professional talk about how his condescending and demeaning language is affecting the staff. However, given that he seems neither mature nor reasonable, that would probably be a fruitless effort, which could put your own job at risk. Your sense of powerlessness is shared by many employees of small, privately owned companies, because under those circumstances, the owner has almost complete control. Realistically, therefore, you will ultimately have to decide whether the benefits of this job outweigh the fact that your boss is an insensitive jerk. Next question. As the manager of a newly formed team, I am concerned about my most senior team member, Stephanie. Stephanie also applied for the manager position, but I was chosen instead. I have avoided meeting with her one-on-one because I don't believe I owe her an explanation for my promotion. Now I'm afraid Stephanie may be trying to undermine my authority and turn the team against me. How should I handle this? And Marie McIntyre says, avoiding Stephanie because you don't owe her an explanation was an error in judgment. While you shouldn't be expected to justify your promotion, an initial conversation to learn about her background and her interests might have gotten the relationship off to a better start and prevented a power struggle. However, there may still be time to turn things around. Instead of treating Stephanie like a problem, engage her in a collaborative discussion about how the two of you can work together to make this new team a success. Once you stop viewing this as an adversarial relationship, you might find that Stephanie can be a valuable ally.
Having mastered ripping off immigrants and the elderly, con artists have put together a new twist on an old scam to trick college students into thinking they need to cough up cash to cover a federal student tax. No one owes any money for a federal student tax, however, because there is no such tax. The crooks are using the term anyway to scare people into paying up. The April tax season is long gone, but bullies run a year-round business. Another scam that's likely to get hotter this summer, demand for quick payments on iTunes gift cards and other gift cards. The crooks making the bogus phone call sound convincing. Some millennials and others have rushed to put anywhere from $500 to $1,500 on the plastic prepaid cards sold at drugstores and mega discount chains. The Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration warned recently that scammers are now trying to persuade potential victims to put cash on all sorts of gift cards to pay bogus bills, not just iTunes gift cards. The victim reads the scammer the numbers off the card to give scammers access to the money. Melissa Humphreys, 34, who lives near Tulsa, Oklahoma, said she rushed out to buy a Walgreens store to put $500 on an iTunes gift card after someone impersonating an IRS agent called her at work. I'm a single parent, and they said I was being investigated for tax fraud from 2010 to 2015 to the tune of $7,986. And in a few hours, a warrant for my arrest was going to be issued, she said. The caller agreed to take $500 to settle up. But now she's out the money. She paid up, she said, because she didn't want to be away from her children if she was sent to jail. Scam artists do what they can to sound legitimate. They use automated robocalls, sometimes already know the last 4 digits of your social security number and can make caller ID information appear if it's from the FBI, the IRS, or the U.S. Treasury. Beginning June 7th, the IRS resumed offering get transcript information online, but the IRS said the system has a more rigorous authentication process for taxpayers that is expected to offer more protection against identity thieves trying to impersonate legitimate taxpayers.
Okay, shall we move on to sports?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Actually, this is a front page story, but it's sports related. The headline reads, Soccer Rule Change Aims to Address Concussions. When youth soccer leagues fire up across Lincoln later this summer, the beautiful game will still be beautiful, but with one small difference. Last week, the Nebraska State Soccer Association banned heading from games and practices for all players under 11 years of age, joining a growing number of states to adopt recommendations put forward by U.S. Soccer in March. The new rules will be effective July 1st. Casey Mann, executive director of Nebraska State Soccer, said Nebraska follows Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, and Ohio in banning the practice for players under the age of 11, even if those players play in older age groups. It's a sign of the times and where the game is heading, Mann said. Most people knew it was coming. It's been a topic that's been in the forefront for a while now. Awareness regarding sports-related concussions has skyrocketed in the past 5 to 6 years, said Dennis Malfisi, founding director of the University of Nebraska Lincoln's Center for Brain Biology and Behavior. While more research is needed, Malfisi said circumstantial evidence indicates subconcussive blows occur when players hit a soccer ball. Those smaller blows may have a cumulative effect on a player's susceptibility to suffering a concussion, especially in younger players. Developing brains under the age of 14 are more susceptible to sustain injury through contact sports, and children who suffer concussions often experience effects longer than adults. We've seen cases where the negative effects from a single concussion, things like sleep disturbances, having a hard time maintaining an even keel as far as emotions go, chronic migraines, last 3 to 4 years after the concussion was experienced, he said. And once a person has suffered a concussion, the risk of suffering the second one rises dramatically. Amy Carpenter, who, like many parents, spends weekdays and weekends driving her children to organized sports practices and games, said her daughter suffered a concussion after colliding head-on with another girl during a basketball game. A few days later, she continued to suffer headaches, and her soccer coach, Joe Rosenberger of Magellan Soccer, pulled her out of a practice to test her for concussion symptoms. She failed the test miserably, Carpenter said. Rosenberger, the co-director of coaching at Magellan, said all players on the club's 18 teams began taking baseline tests more than a year ago to give parents and coaches a tool to monitor them for the effects of a suspected concussion. Since the protocol was put in place, 10 players have been pulled from games. At the end of the day, we love soccer and we love what we do, but it is a sport for these kids, and there are much more important things, Rosenberger said. Their brain is one of them. Many soccer clubs around the state already do not start teaching players to head the ball until they are 12 or older, Mann said. Rosenberger said Magellan, which has about 350 players in Lincoln, follows that school of thought, focusing more on teaching fundamental footwork and developing balance in its younger players. We don't do and never have done a lot of crossing, finishing, or heading practices, so these changes will have a minimal impact on that regard from how we are already training our kids, Rosenberger said. Usually it's older players with more body control and a stronger physique who pick up heading the ball using a correct technique, Rosenberger added. Carpenter, who played soccer herself, said she believes heading is part of the game, both strategically as well as for players to defend themselves against balls kicked inadvertently toward their heads, but added it must be taught properly when players are ready. I'm not so sure older kids, let alone younger kids, know how to head the ball properly, she said. You're teaching young kids so much, and sometimes heading isn't always the first thing taught. If it's not properly taught, you're potentially setting the kids up to injure themselves. Mann said the new directive has been shared with coaches, players, and parents electronically. There has been some response, mostly positive, while a few soccer purists have voiced opposition to the change, saying it dilutes the game. The counter argument is if the game is the game to winning a World Cup is 9 years old heading the ball, I think we're misguided, Mann said.
Jeremy Parker has good reason to be a bit nervous. Not only is the 22-year-old a first-time participant at the U.S. Olympic swim trials, but he also is new to the sport compared to his peers. He started swimming competitively at age 16, a decade or more after many Olympic hopefuls. To ease his jitters, Parker has been taking advantage of a new perk for swimmers this year, a furry troop of therapy dogs. Between heats, swimmers have the option to interact with dogs from Domestic Pups, a Lincoln-based organization that provides service dogs. Golden retrievers, labradoodles, and other breeds are available for the athletes to pet, pick up, or romp around with. Sunday afternoon, Parker had just finished playing with Gus, a golden retriever black lab mix. They help calm the nerves, Parker said. The trials are overwhelming. Parker just graduated from the University of Tampa and will swim in the 50-meter freestyle on Friday. He qualified with a time of 28:87, about a half a second below the cutoff. There are plenty of benefits to providing puppy love to athletes like Parker, said Morgan Weinberg, Program and Services Manager for USA Swimming. Therapy dogs can help boost morale and alleviate stress for the swimmers, Weinberg said. The dogs work in shifts. Between 4 and 5 dogs are available from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the preliminary heats. And another group takes the tail end from 5 to 8 p.m. during finals. Sandy Ludwig, event coordinator for Domestic Pups, said scientific research backs the calming effort of petting dogs. By petting dogs, you release hormones that decrease anxiety, pain, and stress, Ludwig said. The organization has been blown away by the response, she said. At any given time, about a dozen athletes are in a lounge with the furry friends. The dogs don't mind either. The dogs love it, being pet or getting their ears scratched for 3 hours at a time. Domestic Pups is a nonprofit that was founded in 2000. It provides service and therapy dogs to places such as prisons, hospitals, schools, and hospice services. Parker and the other 1,800 trial swimmers have no need to fret while waiting to race. Gus is always ready to play.
Now, my cat doesn't appreciate getting her ears scratched.
Oh, really?
No,
Oh,
she doesn't.
she wouldn't be good therapy.
She would
cat.
not be a good therapy cat. Extremely disappointed Miles grants White release. Exactly when and why Andrew White decided Nebraska wasn't the best place for him to finish his college basketball career isn't certain. One source told the Journal-Star it wasn't a matter of if White, a fifth-year senior, would leave Nebraska, but merely where he is going. That was earlier this spring when White had declared for the NBA draft and was working out for NBA teams. Even when he withdrew from the draft, White carefully worded his official statement to say he was returning for another year of college basketball. That won't be in Lincoln. Nebraska coach Tim Miles confirmed Sunday that he's granted White, a 6'7" wing, his request for a scholarship release. White had reached out to athletic director Sean Eichhorst on Saturday, seeking a transfer. On Sunday, Miles issued the following statement. I spoke with Andrew last evening in which he asked me how he can proceed with a release from Nebraska. There have been discussions with Andrew and his father about Andrew's place in our program for months, and this is his decision. Even though I am extremely disappointed, he will be given a complete release as the logistics are handled this week. We will move on. I'm truly excited about our team in next season. White graduated from Nebraska with a degree in sociology on May 7th, meaning he can play immediately anywhere next season, his final season of eligibility. That includes Big Ten conference schools. White averaged 16.6 points and 5.9 rebounds while earning all Big Ten honorable mention in his only season playing with the Huskers. He would have been Nebraska's top returning scorer and rebounder in one of the nation's premier basketball conferences, and on a team expected to challenge for the NCAA tournament. So why leave? Neither White nor his father, Andrew White Jr., has returned messages seeking clarification to that very question. But multiple sources have said White wants to play on a surefire NCAA tournament team that features more talent and showcases his talent on a bigger stage. That, of course, is to attract NBA scouts. One source said only one NBA team, after evaluating White, believed he could have been drafted last week, and that as a late second-round pick, feedback for improvement included White working more with the ball in his hand, while some evaluations suggested White could increase his exposure and brand by playing on a team guaranteed of playing deep into the NCAA tournament.
Auto racing from Sonoma, California. For at least one weekend, smoke was back. Tony Stewart returned to Victory Lane for the first time in 3 years in vintage fashion, refusing to let Denny Hamlin steal a win at Sonoma Raceway from him on the final lap Sunday. Now he's probably got a shot to run for a 4th NASCAR championship in his final season before retirement. Stewart, mired in an 84 race losing streak dating to 2013, finally won to stop a slide of poor performances, injuries, and personal turmoil. He missed the first 8 races of this season, his last as a NASCAR driver, with a back injury suffered in an off-road vehicle accident 1 week before the season opened. It meant Stewart would have to win a race and crack the top 30 in points to have one last shot at glory before he stepped out of the number 14 Chevrolet for good. It was a long shot considering the way he has run the last 3 years, but those who know Stewart knew not to count him out. And anyone who has followed his career know that Stewart is best when he's in a bad mood, and smoke was ornery all weekend in the picturesque wine country. He complained about young drivers, snarked that NASCAR will be without any tough guys once he retires, and grumbled he has no fun driving a cup car anymore. Well, he sure had fun Sunday. The 45-year-old took the lead on fuel strategy during a caution with 24 laps to go, and had to hold on after another yellow flag stalled the race. The final restart came with 14 laps remaining, the same number as Stewart's car, and he held off a trio of Toyota drivers for his 3rd career victory at Sonoma. Hamlin made it interesting by pouncing on a Stewart mistake to snatch the lead from Stewart in the 7th turn of the final lap. Stewart grabbed it back in tricky turn 11, where he drove to the inside of Hamlin, and as the two raced side by side, Stewart pushed Hamlin toward the wall. Stewart got past Hamlin and charged to the checkered flag with the entire side of his car crumpled and his tires slightly smoking from the contact with with Hamlin. Dozens of drivers then pumped their fist out their window to salute Stewart on his victory lap, while his father, Nelson, wiped away tears. Crew members lined the wall to slap his hand, and teammates Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch were among the drivers to rush to speak to Stewart while he was still inside his car. In other news, NASCAR is unlikely to add a road course to the chase for the championship schedule because it would be hard to get one moved to the Sprint Cup schedule. NASCAR Chairman Brian France spoke on Fox Sports 1's Race Day program before the Sunday's race at Sonoma Raceway and said of adding a road course to the chase, the reality is it is very hard to get the schedule to match up. And I see it's 12 o'clock. It's time to say have a wonderful week.
And please join us again next week.
And we shall. Thank you very much, Mike Garrity and Laura Beth Barr, for coming and giving us more time so that we could be kept informed. You're reading from the
No, my fingers are all newsprinty again.
Wonderful.
I don't have that problem.